After a boring 3 hours of wrestling on Monday, we got a nice rebound tonight. Two of the most interesting hours of Dynamite in a very long time. We had some really good matches on the show tonight. Good action here. Sammy Guevara, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, Pentagon Jr. Opening tag team match. Chris Jericho, Daniel Garcia against Wheeler Yuta and Claudio. Some really good action on the show tonight, but also lots of very interesting storyline directions and potential directions for multiple storylines were teased here on the show tonight, including dissension in the ranks of the Blackpool Combat Club. And at the very end of the show, MJF coming out to fire Stokely Hathaway. Fire Stokely, fire the firm, doesn't want their help anymore. The firm didn't like that very much. And they laid out MJF to close out tonight's show. Ethan Page delivering the Ego's Edge. W. Morrissey chokeslamming MJF through the Timekeeper's table. We may be in, based on what they did tonight, we may be in for the old can they coexist tag team match with Jon Moxley and MJF forced to come together to battle the firm sometime on TV in the next few weeks. We've seen this trope so many times before in WWE to the point of high comedy. We usually don't see that here at AEW, but I do believe that we are going to get it on TV in the next few weeks. And I have a theory. When this show is over tonight, what I liked about the ending of the show is that this could now go in a lot of different directions as far as what happens with MJF. What exactly did we see tonight at the end of the show? Were our eyes deceiving us? Is there something else going on here? There's lots of different theories. There's lots of different possibilities. I have a theory about where we may be heading going into Full Gear, and it involves one William Regal. I'm going to talk about that. We have a lot to unpack here. The one thing I will say about tonight's show, even though I thought it was an excellent show, I enjoyed Dynamite quite a bit tonight. My main gripe, though, is how many times the referees on this show are made to look completely and utterly inept. And they did a storyline on TV not that long ago. It was only a matter of weeks ago involving Paul Turner, the head referee in AEW, and how we're going to clamp down on this. And, we're not going to have this anymore where the referees are made to look like fools. And boy, it looks like that storyline was just dropped cold turkey because these referees look like complete morons every single week. Tonight was really bad. And so that part of it I don't like. But we also have news. We have news. One of the things that we have not been told anything about is the aftermath of the Brawl-Out scrum and the fight backstage last month. AEW has been very quiet about it. All the parties involved, for legal reasons perhaps, have all been very quiet. They have all maintained radio silence. Tony Khan has not said anything about it. There have been rumors in recent days about the Elite. Are they about to make a comeback? We got our answer tonight. They did not show up on the show tonight, but they were backstage. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, per PW Insider, were at the building in the back for the first time since Brawl Out. They were there. And we had a vignette on TV, which I'll talk about. But we have news also on CM Punk, at least as far as his version of events from his camp. We're going to get into that first. This is your AEW Dynamite review for Wednesday, October 26, 2022. I am the Solomonster. I want to thank you all for choosing me for your Dynamite coverage. Super chats are open, so get them on in if you want to support the channel. If you have a question or a comment, I will be reading your messages a little bit later on. 500 likes is the minimum that I need tonight to do Be the Booker. We hit 500 or more, we do Be the Booker. We don't, better luck next time. So that's all I ask of you. 500 is the goal for tonight. I know we're already well on our way, so you guys know what to do. So let's get the news out of the way first, because this is something I read about late in the day, and I want to give credit to Nick Hausman of Wrestling Inc. Now, Nick is the one who CM Punk targeted when he got into the media scrum. After he won the championship, he beat Moxley in the main event at All Out. He sits down. Who's the first person that he looks to? Who's the first person that he calls out? Nick Hausman. Because he had it all plotted out in his head, right? He had it all mapped out what he was going to do. And he knew that at one point in time, Nick Hausman was friends. He was friendly with Colt Cabana. And they used to do, I guess, stand-up comedy together. Well, when Punk asked them, do you still do stand-up with your friend Scott over there? Hausman said no. As a matter of fact, we had a falling out and we haven't really interacted in a very long time. So it was Nick Hausman who broke the news, and I will read you his report from Wrestling Inc. earlier today. Wrestling Inc. reached out to CM Punk's camp, and that is the key here to this story. This is coming directly from CM Punk's camp. Now, who's involved in CM Punk's camp? Who are the camp counselors here? I don't know. Could be Punk directly. Obviously, it could be an intermediary of Punk. We don't know exactly, but it's coming from Punk's camp. He reached out to them for a response, for an update. And much to his surprise, he received one. Says that we've been told that AEW has not reached out to Punk since the incident following the media scrum at All Out, in which Punk and his friend and trainer Ace Steel reportedly got into a backstage brawl with EVPs Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Now let's stop there for a second, because that's very interesting. The recent reports have been that Tony Khan and AEW are attempting to buy out Punk's contract, the remaining years that are left on CM Punk's contract, that he will not be coming back most likely, and they're just looking to pay him off and be done with him. This report would indicate that there's been no communication whatsoever between the two sides. Now, that doesn't mean that AEW does not want to buy out Punk's contract, but when you read stuff like that, it would seem to indicate that there are discussions going on between the two sides about that possibility. Based on this report, which is coming directly from Punk's camp, there has been no communication whatsoever between CM Punk and AEW. They have not spoken, if this report is to be believed. So that's very interesting. But he goes on here, sources indicate that after the brawl, Punk was asked to stay quiet. He agreed to do so. From the perspective of Punk's camp, the scrum itself, which became the talk of the wrestling world due to his comments, did not seem like a big deal. It did not seem like a big deal to them. Not until the incident in the back didn't really become a big deal, until it escalated when Punk's locker room door was, quote, kicked in. Now, this is one of the earlier stories that we heard about, that the door was kicked in by the Elite. They came barging into the locker room and they physically kicked the door in or kicked the door down. The claim here is that it did not become a big deal until the door was kicked in and the door accidentally hit Punk's dog, Larry. Punk brought his dog to the show because they were in Chicago, and so for whatever reason, he decided that it would be a great idea to bring his dog to the show. And based on his version of events, or those close to him, when the door was kicked in, the door hit poor Larry in the face. And the report goes on here, at a pre-scheduled vet appointment that Larry had scheduled already, a few days after the events that went down, Punk was informed that 2 of Larry's teeth had been knocked loose and that the teeth would have to be removed, which I presume is what happened. It says wrestling, and actually let me pause there for a second. So that's a bit of new information that we did not know about. According to Punk's camp, Larry got hurt. Everything we heard about before is that the dog was there. Ace Steel's wife was in there looking after the dog. And the dog was taken out of the room when all of this was going on. There were other versions of the story where Kenny Omega didn't do anything except he just wanted to rescue the dog. Kenny Omega, his only goal was to kind of swoop Larry out of there to make sure that Larry didn't get hurt. And Kenny Omega did not do anything else. We've heard that version of events as well. Now we hear that Larry got smacked in the face with the fucking door and had 2 of his teeth loosened. We have not heard this before. And I would caution you, this is one side of the story here. This is the CM Punk version of events. And it's not even coming necessarily from Punk directly. It's from Punk's camp. Who Nick Hausman spoke to, I don't know, and I'm sure he's not going to tell anybody. Now look, if this is true, anybody who has a pet or at some point in their life has had a pet, a dog, a cat, whatever it might be, okay? A gerbil, a hamster, a tiger, a bear, a lion, a zebra, a horse, a mosquito, whatever it might be, right? It's your pet. You love it. You love it. It means the world to you. It's like a member of the family, right? You put a little chair next to the table when you have dinner at night so the mosquito can have some of the filet mignon. Whatever it is, you would do anything for your pet. And if you saw that your pet was injured, if you saw that somebody hurt your pet, smacked your pet, you would leap into action. You might want to punch that person in the face. Okay? So we don't know if Punk reacted the way he did because Larry had the door kicked in his face, if in fact that's what happened. We don't know. Of course, this all could have been avoided if Punk didn't go on that rant in the first place. I would also say that maybe people ought to stop bringing their fucking pets to these AEW shows because it doesn't seem to go very well. Let me remind you of what happened the last time that Cody and Brandy brought Pharaoh to an AEW show. And they brought the dog out as they shot Pyro off. And that fucking dog almost had a heart attack. Maybe, just maybe, leave the fucking dogs at home. Just an idea. But in any event, again, this is a bit of new information that we did not hear about before. And of course, if Punk reacted the way he did because Larry got hit in the face with a door, I think people would be sympathetic. I think people would understand. But again, this is only one side of the story here. I don't know why we're only first hearing about the dog being injured now. All this other stuff has been leaking out. This is the first we're hearing about there being an actual dog injury. But it doesn't change the fact that Punk still went on that rant and embarrassed Tony Khan, and it doesn't change my mind as far as my belief that Punk has to go. But this report continues on. Wrestling Inc. has been told that Punk felt threatened and reacted in a legal way under Illinois' Castle Doctrine laws, which allow for the use of force in defense of a person in their dwelling. At this time, there is no litigation against Punk on behalf of anyone involved. It was also relayed to us that Ace Steel's wife Lucy was in the room during the incident, but has not been interviewed as part of the internal investigation into the matter. That I mentioned on the podcast just recently. That came out, that she was not interviewed, which is why I posed the question, is there even an investigation going on? We're just taking the word of third-party sources that have reported this. AEW has never officially put out any kind of a press release about there being a formal investigation. We keep hearing about an investigation. We take their word for it. But now we're hearing that 7 weeks later, one of the people in the room hasn't even been spoken to. So you tell me what kind of investigation that is. And finally, the last part of the report here says, we were informed that following Hangman Adam Page's comments on a May episode of AEW Dynamite alluding to backstage concerns about Punk, there was distrust on Punk's end going into his World Championship match with Page at Double or Nothing, and that Punk was concerned that the predetermined match would break down into a real physical fight. I call bullshit on that. I mean, give me a break. Hangman Page is going to go into business for himself and start shooting on Punk in the middle of the ring in the main event of this pay-per-view. Get the fuck out of here. So that part of the report, I read that and I just thought that's completely ridiculous. That Punk feels threatened based on some comments that he made in the middle of a fucking promo on a television show. What did he think he was going to do? Huh? He thought he was going to go all fucking Ken Shamrock on him in the main event at Double or Nothing? Give me a break. The guy who walks out to the ring with jeans with fucking yellow butterflies on them is going to what? What's he going to do? I guess actually CM Punk probably should be concerned. Things didn't go too well for him when he tried to have real fights in the UFC. So maybe he was concerned. Maybe he didn't want to have a replay of what happened in the fights that he had when he actually was going and getting into the octagon. So that I can understand. So anyway, that's the update that we have. All of a sudden, we have new details from Punk's camp. And that is how Punk's camp sees it. I would imagine that the Elite probably see it a very different way. Perhaps their camp will release their version of events now that this has leaked. But one thing that we know is that the Elite are on their way back. And we know this because for the first time since the incident, we actually had them shown on the show tonight. Now, I told you before, PW Insider confirmed they were backstage in the building. What they were doing, who they were talking to, we don't know. But for the first time since All Out, they were there. They were not on camera, though. But they aired a vignette. And it was a series of still images of the Elite, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, in various poses and posing with championships. And at the end of each still image that they showed, It was actually kind of cool the way they did this. It was almost like, if you remember the first Back to the Future movie, when Marty is looking at the photo of his siblings and they're vanishing in the photo, right? I think that was part one or part two. Effectively, that's what was happening here in this vignette. They would show images of the Elite, and then the images would just vanish. They would disappear as if they didn't exist. And then at the very end of the segment, they showed an AEW logo, which evaporated. And then the last letter of the logo they showed was an E for Elite. But then the logo evaporated, and that was it. That was the entire vignette that they showed. It was like Thanos snapping his fingers, and then they all just disappeared. And I look at that and I say to myself, what does it mean, right? What does that represent exactly? Represents the fact that without the Elite, there is no AEW. Right? The logo vanishing. It's true. Without the Elite, without Tony Khan signing the members of the Elite, there would be no AEW. I've said the same thing about Chris Jericho, but there were more members of the Elite, and without them, Tony Khan wouldn't have had that base of talent to start this company in the first place. So that's kind of how I read that. But what we know is that this is an indication that they are on their way back, and we are only a few weeks away now from Full Gear. So what Tony Khan clearly is trying to do here, he wants these guys back in time for Full Gear. The Elite may well be in a match of some kind at the pay-per-view, which is only, I think, 3 weeks away. So it looks like Tony Khan is trying to get these guys back for Full Gear so he can load that show up as much as possible. He's not going to have CM Punk. Even if Punk was coming back, Punk's hurt. But if he can get back the Young Bucks and he can get back Kenny Omega, those are 3 big names, or 2 if you lump the Bucks together, that he can get back on his show in time for the next pay-per-view. So that is the update. Our first real update. I was shocked. We actually had some kind of update on this situation tonight. That is where things stand. The Punk situation is very, very bizarre to me, if he has not had any communication with the company at all, not even Tony Khan. But apparently poor Larry the dog, based on what Punk is suggesting, he took a door to the face. He took a door to the face. So let's get into the actual show tonight. Let's get into what happened on television tonight. No more backstage drama. They open tonight with tag team action. Ring of Honor World Champion Chris Jericho and Ring of Honor Pure Champion Daniel Garcia taking on Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. Yeah, I mean, again, just to kind of go back to it here for a second. The Elite were, as Quizzical just mentioned in the chat, they were the backbone, and they still are in many ways the backbone of AEW. And as EVPs in the company, I still believe that their EVP title should be stripped, because I think it just creates the potential for even more problems in the future that Tony Khan frankly doesn't need. I just don't think it's a good idea to have active talent in the company serving as executive vice presidents at the same time that they're also being booked or booking themselves on television. So I do think stripping them of their EVP status, their formal titles, would probably be appropriate in this case. But we have heard so many different versions of events when it comes to this stuff. And the thing is, I'm not sure we'll ever know exactly what happened, down to the detail. They've been so secretive about this. Maybe in a shoot interview 5 years from now, somebody will spout off. Unless they've signed NDAs or something. Maybe that's why nobody can talk. But there have been so many different versions of events that have gone around. We know Ace Steel bit somebody and threw a chair, or else he wouldn't have been let go. But beyond that, again, this was Punk's version of events, and we'll see what comes out. We'll see what comes out in the future. I'm skeptical on some of this stuff. So we had William Regal join on commentary, and he saw Excalibur. He saw his beloved Excalibur. He said, "Man in the mask, you little creme brulee, you. I'd love to crack you and let you just melt in my mouth. I would, honestly." Okay, this is just getting creepy now. This is just getting creepy. I mean, the snap, crackle, and pop stuff was creepy enough a few weeks ago. This is now going to another level. This is going to the level where if Excalibur was on, what's that app, Tinder or whatever, Regal, yeah, he would be swiping in the other direction. Regal would be messaging him. We'd probably get the police involved. It would be a whole mess. So Yuta was over tonight, and I couldn't really figure out why, because they were chanting his name from the moment that he and Claudio made their entrance. And I said, are they in his hometown? I mean, I think he's from Philly. They weren't in Philly tonight, but it was his birthday. I don't even know if most of the crowd knew that. Maybe that's why they were chanting for him, or maybe he was just over to this audience. But it was very noticeable when he came out. They were very big into Wheeler Yuta. They were big into Wheeler Yuta in a way that the WWE fans are not very big into Mustafa Ali, unfortunately. So Jake Hager was back out there. He was wearing his stupid purple bucket hat, trying to get involved. Claudio jumped out of the ring onto the apron, and he was threatening to dive, or it looked like he was maybe threatening to dive out onto Hager, but Jericho hit the springboard drop kick to take us into the first picture-in-picture. Claudio was isolated during the break. Jericho attempted a Walls of Jericho. Claudio avoided it, landed an uppercut. Claudio made the tag to Yuta, and then he helped Yuta with an assisted tornado DDT on Jericho. He attempted a Ricola bomb, but Jericho escaped. He hit a code breaker. Yuta slammed Jericho, dove out onto Garcia on the floor. Claudio powerbombed Jericho and set up for a giant swing. When Daniel Garcia decided to jump on Claudio's back. Now, Claudio looked at this and said, fuck this. Like, is that supposed to stop me? And so what he did was a simultaneous airplane spin to Daniel Garcia and giant swing to Chris Jericho. And he got about 5 or 6 revolutions out of it. The crowd was on their feet giving this guy a standing ovation. The man is a freak. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The man is a freak. Claudio destroyed everybody on the floor. When I say he was running wild, he went out of the ring and he hit Hager, he hit Garcia. I think Menard and Parker may have been there. He was wiping everybody out. So he climbs up to the top rope, and Jericho is in the ring, and Jericho's standing there, and he's waiting for him. The timing was off a little bit. Claudio jumps off the top, and it looked as if I thought, okay, Jericho's going to catch him and try to put him in the walls. But instead, Claudio just landed on his feet and then gave him an uppercut. So I don't know what exactly he was thinking when he did this. I don't know if the idea was as he was in midair, maybe he would do the uppercut motion. He just landed on his feet and then threw an uppercut. It didn't really look very impressive. It was a little wonky. But then he landed a neutralizer and he pinned the Ring of Honor World Champion clean in the middle of the ring. That was a nice surprise. I was not expecting that finish. I was not expecting the Blackpool team to win, but I was definitely not expecting Claudio to pin Jericho clean. And it does make sense. We were talking last week about who could challenge Jericho next. Who could challenge him, whether it's on TV or at Full Gear. Who's going to challenge him next? Claudio never got his rematch. Claudio got fucked over at Grand Slam. Jericho low blowed him. And he never got a rematch for the championship. So what this finish does now is it sets up Claudio for the rematch that you could argue he deserved and never got. And I hadn't thought about them just going back to Claudio, but that would make a lot of sense. And it would give Claudio something to do. Backstage, the story continued, though, with the Blackpool Combat Club. We go to Renee Paquette, who was all over the show tonight. Renee has taken Tony Schiavone's job away from him. Tony just has to sit at the announce desk and go, "It's Sting!" And he doesn't have to do much else. He can't even do that because Sting is not even on the show anymore. Sting is on an extended vacation. Sting is taking a cruise around the world. I'd like to think that Sting is taking a vacation and he is taking a cruise around the world with his Sting makeup on. That is how I like to picture Sting. I like to picture Sting going about his daily routine dressed up as Sting with the gloves and the face paint, maybe the baseball bat in his hand. Maybe he's a little league coach. But Sting is not here right now. Renee was in the back with Bryan Danielson. Danielson was very frustrated that he lost to Chris Jericho. He was very frustrated that Daniel Garcia, turned against him and that Wheeler Yuta talked back to him last week. So he realizes that people hate Sammy Guevara and he's going to go and take out all of his frustrations on him in a match tonight. Yuta arrives to the back, right? Claudio and Yuta make their way through the curtain. They arrive. Yuta interrupts Danielson's promo. And he says, I'm not a kid. I'm a grown-ass man. Danielson ends up giving him a shove. Claudio gets in between the two of them to try to play peacemaker and say, okay, look, enough. Enough. And he mentioned that after Danielson beats Sammy tonight, they're going to sit down and they're going to hash things out like adults. And in here somewhere, he mentioned the fact that it was Yuta's birthday, and Danielson, the microphone didn't really pick it up that well, but he just muttered happy birthday, and then he walked off to go do whatever it is that he was going to do. So, teasing turmoil in the ranks of the Blackpool Combat Club, which is an interesting direction to take here. Moxley was not involved in any of this. Regal was standing there watching all of this unfold. We had Danielson, we had Yuta, we had Claudio. There was no Mox. Mox was off somewhere, getting ready for the main event. But it's an interesting direction to take, teasing the possibility that there could be a split. Maybe somebody leaves the group or somebody turns on the other. But again, this is storytelling. This is storytelling. I saw what Tony Khan said about Eric Bischoff. He got very defensive about Bischoff's criticisms, and he was on Busted Open earlier, and he took it out on Bischoff and said, it's kind of funny that Bischoff criticizes that, there are matches sometimes on these shows that don't necessarily have a story attached to them, when WCW Monday Nitro back in the day had tons of matches that had no stories attached to them. And he's not wrong when he says that. And he's also not wrong, I think, to also be frustrated that there's this narrative that there are just matches in AEW for the sake of matches. They don't have any stories. AEW has no stories. AEW has plenty of stories. They're not always good stories. But I've always laughed at that criticism. Of all the things you can criticize AEW for, you can't say that there are no stories. They were telling a great story for a while there involving the Elite and Hangman Page. They were starting to tell a story involving the Elite and Adam Cole and Red Dragon, and of course that went to hell. I mean, boy, did that story fall apart. But that was a story they were telling. They obviously told a great story with CM Punk and MJF when they feuded at the beginning of the year. And I really wish they would have had the chance to close out that chapter at Full Gear, like I'm sure they would have. And now it's not, it's never going to happen now. And they're telling a story with Jericho now in the Ring of Honor World title. And look, I'm not really into the Ring of Honor stuff that they're doing right now either, but I think it's a good angle. I actually think that it's a good angle that Jericho is trying to, sully the good name of Ring of Honor, and he's going to take out every former Ring of Honor champion that he can. Right? It's a solid story to tell that in the end will result in him putting over the young guy in Daniel Garcia. That has to be the end of that story. That's the final chapter of that story. So again, I don't want to hear that there's no stories in AEW. And apparently neither does Tony Khan, who in so many words, without directly saying it, basically told Eric Bischoff to fuck off. And anytime anybody wants to tell Eric Bischoff to fuck off, that's okay with me. So we go to Jericho in the back with all of his buddies, the JAS. They're not very happy about what just happened. He's in a very bad mood. And I'm sure the audio crew was also in a very bad mood because I could barely hear a fucking thing that they were saying. The audio was all screwed up here. And it sounded like it was screwed up in the arena too. So I'm not sure how much people in the building were able to hear this. But from what I could put together here, Jericho said that Claudio cheated because there was a bat in the ring when he won the match, because Jericho did try to use the bat, but ended up dropping it, never got to use it. But he said that there was a bat in the ring. So yes, if you did not see the show, fucking Batman was in the ring tonight. You missed it. This is why you got to watch the show. So Jericho issued an open challenge for next week against any former Ring of Honor World Champion. So let the guessing begin. The obvious choice would be Claudio, unless they want to save that match for Full Gear. Claudio is in a position now, having beaten Jericho, where it shouldn't be anybody but him. If anybody but Claudio comes walking out next week, this makes no sense. He got screwed out of the Ring of Honor World title. He pinned the champion on the show tonight. He is the number one man who should have a gripe with Chris Jericho and have a claim to that title. So I think it'll be Claudio. Could it be a Samoa Joe? I don't think so, because Joe is doing the War Joe stuff right now. It's basically him and Wardlow against Taven and Mike Bennett and the Kingdom folks. Everybody's such a big Kingdom fan. Oh my God, I haven't seen so much hate for new talent coming into the company in a very long time. I didn't know that the Kingdom was so hated. I knew Taven had a lot of haters out there. I didn't know the Kingdom was such a hated group, though. But no, I don't think it's going to be Joe. And again, Adam Cole, I don't even know what his status is. You know, he is a former Ring of Honor World Champion. We haven't seen him in many months. I don't know if he's cleared. But the last time we saw him, he was a heel. So to me, unless they're turning him, which I suppose they could, they don't have Kyle O'Reilly anymore. He's going to be out hurt for a while. I think he had neck surgery. Bobby Fish swam away. So you have Adam Cole. I guess you could turn him babyface if you wanted to. I don't think it's going to be Adam Cole. Jay Lethal is occupied next week. He's wrestling Darby Allin. Claudio would make the most sense. Speaking of Ring of Honor, we have the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, FTR, wrestling on Dynamite. It's about time. We got to see them more often on this show. Taking on Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland to crown a new #1 contender for the AEW World Tag Team titles. Huge reaction for FTR. Even though we haven't seen them on TV very often, Wardlow has been cooled off. The fans, they still go nuts when FTR's music hits, and why wouldn't they? Because they have great fucking music and they're a great team. So they got a great reaction. They showed in the front row at ringside, the Gun Club. Austin Gunn, Colton Gunn were dressed up as Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. They had cardboard versions of their title belts. Austin had a bald cap on. Colton had a wig, pretending to be, I guess, Wheeler. The Acclaimed came out with Billy Gunn. They came out on stage with chairs, and they took seats to observe the match. There was no rap from Max Caster. Swerve got taken down early by FTR, so he quickly scrambled and tagged in Keith Lee. And Lee did this very impressive leapfrog over both members of FTR. So he pulled off a double leapfrog, and Keith Lee is as big as I've ever seen him. I mean, he's a giant man. And to be able to do a leapfrog to both guys and the leapfrog drop down, I mean, that's not an easy thing to do when you're a big guy like that. So that was impressive. And he took down both members of FTR with a crossbody. So during the break, Cash Wheeler took the bear paw chops from Keith Lee, and we couldn't hear it because it was the picture-in-picture. So, that's the kind of spot they should have saved for after the break. Because the real effect of that is when you hear, like, it reverberates throughout the entire building, and when you don't have the audio, it just doesn't have the same effect. So Wheeler dodged a Keith Lee splash. He backdropped Swerve. He was doing everything he could to get away from these two, and finally he makes the hot tag to Dax Harwood. And Harwood comes out, and he is dishing out a ridiculous number of knife-edge chops to the point of absurdity. It was like, all right, enough already. We get the point. Keith Lee was sent to the floor. Swerve and Harwood traded some near falls. Swerve went to go execute some kind of move off the middle rope. He slipped. He lost his footing, but he quickly recovered, right? Don't dwell on it. Just keep things moving along. Don't give the you fucked up chance a chance. So he kept things moving along. Hit a crossbody. Harwood rolled through for a 2 count. So Dax hit Swerve with a rebound sit-out powerbomb, bounced them the old Tully Blanchard way, bounced them off the top rope, hit the sit-out powerbomb. Wheeler was dropped with a very stiff headbutt by Keith Lee. Knocked Keith Lee loopy, and Keith Lee collapsed down on top of Wheeler. Got a very close 2 count. Keith then decided to go up on the ropes. He got cut off by Dax, who performed a superplex, and he nailed it, and they were going for the powerplex combo. So as soon as he hit the superplex, the idea was that Wheeler would come off the top with the top rope splash. I don't know what happened here. It looked to me like Keith Lee just misread things or forgot himself for a second, because instead of taking the superplex and laying flat, he took the superplex and was kind of turning. He was selling it, but he was turning and ended up on his back. So Wheeler comes off the top and basically splashes him on the back, but the whole thing looked very awkward. It was a botch, but it didn't come off right. And I liked Excalibur. I will give Excalibur credit, as annoying as I find him sometimes. I will give Excalibur credit because he was thinking quickly. He was thinking on his feet. He saw what happened here, and I like the fact because he kicked out. He explained that had he hit the move flush, it would have been over. But he didn't, right? Because Keith Lee kind of rolled over onto his back. He didn't hit the move flush like he normally would. If he would have done that, surely he would have gotten the pinfall. That's why Keith Lee kicked out. So I like that. FTR ended up hitting Lee with the big rig. The biggest rig they ever rigged. Swerve, though, was right there on the outside to reach in and yank the referee out of the ring at the very last second. Swerve sent Wheeler into the barricade. And he happened to send him into the barricade right in front of the Gun Club. They were right there in the front row. Dax hit the ropes. Swerve reached in. And without the referee seeing, Swerve reached in, and he reached up. And he delivered a low blow to Dax that the referee did not see. One of the many things that the referees did not see on the show tonight. And Keith Lee then hit Harwood with the Big Bang Catastrophe. And the Gun Club was holding Dax, Wheeler rather, against the barricade. Wheeler was trying to break free. He was trying to save his partner, but he was being held back by Billy's offspring. And so Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland pin FTR, and they become the #1 contenders for the AEW World Tag Team titles. After the match, Gun Club beat down FTR in the ring. The Acclaim ran down since they were sitting on stage. They ran down to make the save and chase off the Gun Boys. There were a couple of rough moments, but this is a very good match, as you would expect from these two teams. I think it would be hard for them not to have a good match. I thought this was very good. And look, I don't hate FTR losing. And I don't hate FTR losing mainly because if they would have won this match, and if they would have become #1 contenders for the Acclaim just won the titles at Grand Slam, right? They've been champions for a month, maybe 5 weeks. Not even a full 5 weeks. And they're very over. They're one of the most over acts in the entire company. And so is FTR. But it would be way premature to even think about taking the belts off Bowens and Caster. That would be crazy. So if FTR won, they were basically punching their ticket to a loss at Full Gear. So pick your poison. If you don't like the fact that FTR lost tonight, would you rather they lose at the pay-per-view? Because had they gone to Full Gear, they were not going to win the AEW Tag Team titles. They have been teasing a program between the Gun Club and FTR now on television for several weeks. Billy's boys have been mocking them and just making fun of them. So you knew them being there at ringside was going to play into the finish in some way. I would rather they do the finish they did tonight than just give FTR the win and then just feed them to the Acclaimed and then what? Then they move on to who? Who do they move on to? Lee and Strickland, I'm glad they're not giving up on them right away, right? They're keeping them in the mix. We're going to get a rematch, probably at Full Gear for the tag team titles. They're not going to win. And then after that, I would presume we'll get the split. Swerve's a great heel. Swerve Strickland is great as a heel. Keith Lee, I think, would be better off as a babyface, so when the split happens, they could even feud. You can have a Keith Lee Swerve Strickland feud, but that's for later on. I'm glad they're keeping them in the mix. It would have been very easy for them to lose at Grand Slam and then just disappear like so many other people have disappeared on this show, right? We see them and then we don't for weeks at a time. So I'm glad they're being kept in the mix. FTR will have their day. When the day comes at FTR, and they'll beat the Gun Club, and maybe after they beat the Gun Club, and after the Acclaim take care of Lee and Strickland, maybe that's the next match. The next match after that may well be FTR and the Acclaim. I don't know if they want to hold off on that until Revolution. You know, that's still a few months away. FTR will have their day. They will have their AEW Tag Team titles back. Now is not the time. Renee was backstage, and she was backstage with Saraya. And they were exchanging pleasantries when they were interrupted by Britt Baker. And Britt Baker and Saraya were arguing so much, I picked up on Saraya calling her a bitch, which may be a sentiment among a lot of different women in the locker room, but they were arguing back and forth. Renee then had enough of this, all the screaming and all the yelling, so she got between them and she shouted them down. And then Britt simply walked off, and that was the entire segment. So not much of a segment here on this show. After this, Renee was on stage. This was the Renee show. AEW Dynamite has turned, and I'm not complaining about that either, by the way, but Renee was all over this show. They are putting this woman to work. She's not coming in to do 1 or 2 interviews and go home. They're putting this woman to work. She was out on stage. She introduced MJF. Comes out and gets a nice reaction. He asked if there were any devil worshippers in the house. Renee asked him how he felt heading into his match against Jon Moxley at Full Gear. And MJF did a Jon Moxley impersonation. He was walking around on stage where, Moxley does the thing with the shoulders. Moxley walks around like this. Again, I like to think in everyday life. Walks to the supermarket. This is what he does, It's like that. This is what he does. Maybe he's just exercising his shoulders and his traps. I don't know. I don't know why he does what he does. I don't know that Jon Moxley knows why he does what he does. He just does it. So I thought it was a good impersonation. And then he talked about how Moxley, he impersonated Moxley. I'm going to drink your blood and I'm going to gargle your piss, which sounded very unsanitary. I would not suggest doing that. And then he said, with all due respect, when it comes to what I think of Jon Moxley, he said that there's only one word that comes to mind. He goes, and that word is mid. And Renee said, you can't really say with all due respect and then go and insult somebody because you're not being genuine when you say that. And MJF responded by saying, with all due respect, shut your mouth. That was a great line. That was good. So MJF said that Regal got under his skin last week when he inferred that he could not beat Moxley without help or without his Dynamite Diamond Ring. And he was backtracking on what he said last week. At the very end of the show last week, when he announced that he would be challenging for the championship at Full Gear, he said, I'm going to earn it. He basically was implying that he's not going to cheat. He's not going to take any shortcuts. He's going to do it the right way. He's going to earn the title. Here he was backtracking. He said, about that. He goes, look, I'm still MJF, right? So he said he'll win the title mostly clean. But he did make one promise. And this is very important because I think if my theory is correct about where this is headed, this right here is going to be the very important line to pay attention to heading into Full Gear. He did make one promise, which was that when he beats Jon Moxley, he promised us he will not use his Dynamite Diamond Ring. That is the one pledge, and I believe he'll stick to that. The one pledge he made, he will not use the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And I'll tell you why I think that's an important line in a little bit. So he started to call himself a generational talent, but Stokely Hathaway walked out on stage to interrupt him. Stokely said that he knew that he wanted Moxley at 100%, and then MJF cut him off. And he slapped the mic out of Stokely's hand. And he told Stokely that he wasn't to touch Jon Moxley. He wants him at 110%. You are not to touch Jon Moxley or you will be fired. Right? He made that very clear. He said that he needed Moxley at 100% so that Regal and all of his fanboys have no excuses. And then he had the fans chant along to his catchphrase, which is something we have not seen him do before. He has not encouraged the crowd to chant his catchphrase. It's a very babyface thing for him to do. And that's what closed out the segment. Again, a good segment. This was not Regal and MJF from last week, but it was the setup to what we would then see at the end of the show, which was the big, climactic angle to, which I thought was actually very surprising what they did at the end of the show, which we will talk about. I mentioned the Kingdom a little while ago, Taven, Bennett, Maria, who now, by the way, are all officially under contract. They were not under contract before. They are now officially under, I don't know, I guess technically it would be AEW contracts. I don't know if it would be Ring of Honor contracts, but they are signed. Maria is not going to be wrestling. She'll be a talent on air, but apparently she will not be doing any wrestling. So we had a vignette, though, with the Kingdom, and comments from Wardlow and Samoa Joe spliced in. Matt Taven called Wardlow a Melvin. Still doing that. Wardlow said that he would make Taven his next victim on Friday with a powerbomb symphony. Please do. We had Bryan Danielson one-on-one with Sammy Guevara. This is a match I was looking forward to. This is one of those first-time matches I don't believe we've had before on Dynamite. I think this was the first time ever meeting between these two. And I thought it delivered. Sammy struck early in the match. First minute of the match, he hit the double springboard cutter for a near fall. Danielson recovered. He landed a series of uppercuts and chops. He tried for an armbar. Sammy scrambled to the ropes. Danielson hit a series of palm strikes and then a baseball slide. He attempted a diving knee off the apron to Sammy on the floor. As he came off for the attempted diving knee, Sammy hit a knee strike counter, and then he hit a springboard moonsault off the ropes onto Danielson at ringside. They got some height on this, too. Scary height. Took out Danielson ahead of the commercial break. Danielson was taking stiff kicks from Guevara after the break, and all it was doing was just firing him up. It was having no effect. It was just making him angrier and angrier and angrier. He landed a heavy running elbow strike, sent Sammy out to the floor. Bryan followed that with a suicide dive, and then he tossed Sammy back in the ring. Went up top, hit a shotgun drop kick. Bryan set up for a back suplex off the top a little while later. Sammy, though, flipped out of it, landed on his feet on the way down. That was a long way down, too. Landed on his feet. Bryan eventually got the label lock, though. Guevara reached the ropes. Bryan went up top. Sammy leapt to the top rope in a single bound and hit a Spanish fly for a near fall. So Sammy was frustrated, and he started biting Bryan on the forehead, which reminded me, we did not get Moxley blood in the main event. I didn't even realize it during the match, but Moxley did not bleed in that main event tonight. He tried for the go to hell, Sammy did. Bryan landed on his feet, and he ended up hitting a poison rana. Bryan hit the Busaiku knee, which turned Sammy inside out, locked in the triangle with elbows to the top of the head until Sammy went limp. Referee called for the stoppage. Danielson picks up the win. I thought this was great stuff from these two. Sammy had his working shoes on here. He had his working boots on for this match. Bryan is always great. Danielson he's one of the best in the world. But Bryan had to win this, especially after the way Wheeler Yuta kind of called him out in that backstage segment earlier in the night. Again, there's a story that's going on right now within the ranks of the Blackpool Combat Club. Bryan had to win this match. So it was the right outcome. But Sammy hung in there with him, and Sammy I thought was very impressive, and this was one of the... trying to think if this was the best match, the match I enjoyed the most. It probably was, actually. This probably right here. And maybe I'd put the tag team match behind this with FTR and Swerve in Our Glory. I thought those were the two best matches on the entire show. Renee was in the back. There she is again. With Rey Fenix and Alex Abrahantes. They said tonight Pentagon is going to become a double champion, and Alex said that Fenix should follow in his footsteps. He should become the next All-Atlantic champion. And at that exact moment, as if they were just standing there and just waiting for their cue, here comes Christian Cage and Luchasaurus. And Christian said that his right hand of destruction, he deserves a shot at the All-Atlantic title because he already laid claim to it. They said last week or the week before, we're going after every champion in this company. Here comes Orange Cassidy. Very casually strolls into camera view, and he's not even looking at either man. He's not looking at Fenix. He's not looking at Christian or Luchasaurus. He's got the sunglasses on. He just looks straight ahead into the camera at all of us. And he pulls the All-Atlantic title out of his backpack, and he says, "Let's do this." So this was the laziest setup to a triple threat that I have seen, coming from the laziest man on the roster. So I guess it kind of fits, right? It kind of makes sense. So that match is going to take place on Dynamite next week. We had Jamie Hayter with Britt Baker in her corner going one-on-one with Riho, who returned on TV last week. We had dueling chants from the crowd here. And the story of the match was the strength of Jamie Hayter, who was the powerhouse, against the speed of Riho, who is a very tiny woman. And she can move around a lot faster than all the other women in the division. Riho low-bridged Hayter, hit a top rope crossbody to the floor. Same thing that she did last week when she came back. Remember, she climbed to the top, hit a crossbody out to the floor. Did the exact same thing here. Hayter recovered, though, drove Riho into the side of the ring and then into the guardrail. Jamie was just manhandling this woman heading into the commercial break. Hayter took the referee. That allowed Britt Baker, while the ref was distracted, to get some shots in on Riho. Later on, Hayter rolled through a top rope crossbody into a brainbuster for a very close near fall. Baker tripped up Riho with the referee not looking. Surprise, surprise. Which was enough for Hayter to block a sunset flip, but Riho flew into a code red for 2. Riho missed the top rope double stomp, ran right into a backbreaker from Jamie Hayter, the best backbreaker in the business. Every time I see this woman hit a backbreaker, it hurts my back. It looks brutal, looks great. And when you have her doing a move like that to a woman who probably is 80 fucking pounds, it looks even better. So Hayter ended up picking up the win with a ripcord lariat and just obliterated her with it. You know, Jamie sold for Riho way more than I expected her to. And way more, I feel like, than she should have. I know Riho, you know, people love Riho. She gets a big reaction when she comes out. She just came back. This is her first match back. I'm not saying it should have been a squash, but this ended up being a very competitive match. It was a good match. But I don't know that it had to be as competitive as it was. I mean, she was selling her ass off for Riho. After the match was over, Hayter was celebrating with Britt Baker and Rebel in the ring. Toni Storm's music hit, and the interim AEW Women's Champion walked out on stage, held up her title. Jamie was standing on the ropes, jawing at her from afar, and that looks to be the setup for what should be the championship match at Full Gear. It should be Toni Storm defending against Jamie Hayter. And look, I would be tempted to do a title change. I'm a big fan of Jamie Hayter, and you know, I still feel the way that I have felt for a long time. I still feel the way that I have felt since I read that Chris Statlander got injured again and was going to be out for a very long time. And even now, she's going to be out for a very long time, right? There's no imminent return for Chris Statlander. She tore her ACL. She's going to be gone for a while. She would have been the perfect person to take the TBS title from Jade Cargill. That didn't happen. The next best choice would be Jamie Hayter. Because I don't think they want to take the title off of Toni Storm until Thunder Rosa comes back. And they could do Thunder Rosa and Jamie Hayter. Or Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm. Thunder Rosa, it doesn't look like, is going to be back until at least January. So you keep the title on Toni Storm until Thunder Rosa is ready to come back, and then you can do that match. And in the meantime, what it gives them time to do is tell the proper story between Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter, the split. And I've been talking about this split for fucking 6 months, I feel like. But they did that little swerve. But we know it's coming. It has to be coming. And I think what happens is Jamie Hayter gets a title match at Full Gear. The only reason she doesn't beat Toni Storm to win the championship is because of Britt Baker. Whether it's an intentional spot where she causes Jamie not to win the title, or it's an accidental or accidentally on purpose. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go with this. But I do think Britt Baker will play a role in the finish and Jamie not winning the title. And this time it will not be a ruse. This time it will be Jamie Hayter coming for the head of Britt Baker. That's the story to tell. There's plenty of time to put Jamie Hayter in a position to challenge and win either the women's title, the TBS title. But I still feel like her splitting from Britt, going babyface, and then challenging Jade and being the one to dethrone Jade would be the way to go. That's what I would do. Backstage, Renee was back for the 5th time on this show. 5th or 6th, I've lost count. I think it was the 5th time. To interview Eddie Kingston. And she said that his friends are concerned about him, asked him how he's doing. And he kind of blew off the question. He had this very disingenuous smile on his face. He was smiling, but you knew that he just was not in a mood, basically. He was not in a mood to be bothered. He was putting on a happy face. And he was talking about, he changed the subject and wanted to talk about Mox's match tonight with Penta and who's going to win. And he put over Penta because remember when Eddie Kingston first came into the company, he was It was him and the Lucha Bros. So he goes, Penta's his boy, but he's got to go with Mox. Mox is still his boy too, and he said that he's going to pick up the win, and then he said he wants everybody else to just leave him alone. See, Eddie Kingston is a full mood. Eddie Kingston he's that's my mood. I'm like Eddie Kingston. I just want to be left alone. I have a lot of days like that where I just want to be left the fuck alone. I can relate to Eddie Kingston. But where they're going with this story or this new aspect of his character, I don't know. We had a vignette with Darby Allin where he was talking about why Sting has not been around. He mentioned that we haven't seen Sting in a while, and he said that he told Sting that he wasn't happy. He wanted to just crawl into a hole and be by himself. Boy, this seems to be going around a lot in this company. A lot of people just want to be left alone. For a company full of people who just want to be left alone, there sure is a lot of fighting that goes on backstage. Doesn't really make any sense. Sting told him that you can't do that because you're Darby Allin. You're the guy who brought me out of retirement. And Darby said that he understood what Sting meant. He challenged Jay Lethal's friend to show up on Dynamite next week and tell him what his biggest weakness is to his face. This goes back to a promo where Jay Lethal said that he had spoken to a good friend of Darby's who was filling him in on Darby's greatest weakness. So he wanted this friend to show up next week and let him know to his face what that weakness supposedly is. And Darby said that he already knows his biggest weakness. It's him. Said he's been walking around on thin ice for his entire life. Our main event was Jon Moxley defending the AEW World Championship against Pentagon Jr., trying to become only the second man, we were told, in AEW history to hold 2 championships in the company simultaneously. First one being Pac, his partner from Death Triangle. So we had a big slap and a chop fight that broke out. More chops. I think part of the problem is, and you could say this is not just an AEW problem, but we had a tag team match earlier in the show with FTR, right? We had the sequence with Dax Harwood where he was just laying in the chops nonstop to Swerve. And then Keith Lee got in the ring, more chops. I lost count of how many chops he threw. And then you come to the main event and we have another chop fest. I wish there would be more quality control as far as, I guess, the chopping, has just become such a ubiquitous thing that everybody does it. It's like dives, right? I think chops are in that same category, I guess, now, where you just sort of assume that everybody is going to do it in their match. I just wish they would communicate that and say, look, we're going to be doing a spot or a sequence in the main event where we're, going back and forth with chops for 30 seconds. So maybe don't do that in your match. Because after a while, you just, it's just, you get numb to it. You see it so much. 2, 3 different matches on the same show. They probably should do a better job of communicating with each other about that. But anyway, the chop fight didn't last too long. Penta flashed his hand sign to Moxley. Moxley gave him a hand sign of his own, the double bird. Penta sent Moxley to the floor and then dove onto him with a flip over the top rope, heading into the final break of the night. Penta hit a sling blade for a near fall. Moxley came back with a cutter and a stuffed pile driver, only got 2. Moxley started laying in the hammer and anvil elbows. He tried to lock in the bulldog choke. Penta managed to slip out and escape. He went for the arm breaker. Moxley had it scouted, but couldn't avoid the second attempt. And Penta hit the arm breaker, tried to pin him, only got 2. I do miss the old Penta. I miss the old Lucha Underground Penta. When he would break someone's arm, you knew they were going to be gone for at least a few weeks. Sometimes they would be back a little too soon for someone who supposedly had their arm broken. But I do miss that version of Penta, the bone breaker version of Pentagon from Lucha Underground. So they both rolled out to the apron. Moxley took a kick to the head, and so he backed away from Penta. Now the ring steps had been moved ever so slightly away from the ring, maybe like a foot away. So Moxley there's like a little bit of a gap between the steps and the ring. Moxley is standing on the steps. I mean, they're really telegraphing this next spot. Penta builds up a head of steam. He comes running in, and it looks like he's going to try for a destroyer off the ring steps to the floor. He goes for the destroyer. Moxley stops him, and instead Moxley hooks his head and then delivers a DDT on top of the ring steps to Penta. Back inside, King Kong Lariat connects, only gets 2. Hangman was not so lucky last week. They did give an update on commentary on Hangman. They did at least mention that he's okay, he's doing better, and Excalibur quickly moved on after that. Penta got Moxley in the Tree of Woe. He delivered the diving foot stomp from the top, and then he went for Fear Factor, and he connected. And he looked like he got all of it. Dropped Moxley right on his head with the pile driver. He went for the cover. Paul Turner counted 1, Paul Turner counted 2, and Paul Turner would have counted 3, but he held his count up so that Moxley could kick out. And so that did not look very good. It was what I call the Kurt Angle kick out. It was the 3.1 kick out, which Kurt Angle was notorious for. And it's the only thing in the entire match he had with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania that just annoyed the shit out of me. It was that one spot. It was this great spot. Shawn was yelling at him, stay down, you know, just right up at his face, and Shawn just kind of pushes him away and super kicks him right under the chin. Sweet chin music. Eventually he crawls on top of him, and the ref counts 1, the ref counts 2, the ref could have counted 3, and Kurt kicks out, or he gets a shoulder up at 3.1. Kurt, what are you doing? What are you doing, Kurt? That's what we got here from Moxley. So Penta had something in mind. He came off the ropes with a springboard, but he leapt right into a paradigm shift. Moxley picked him back up, hit a Death Rider, and he got the pin and retained the AEW World Championship. Good match from these two, but the real story came after the match was over. The Firm hits the ring. So we have Big W. Morrissey, right? The big 7-footer mows down Moxley with a big boot. Ethan Page is in there. Lee Moriarty is in there. The Gun Club is back out there. Here comes Stokely Hathaway while all of this is going on, and he's looking very proud of the Firm and what he is seeing. He's walking down to the ring. He gets inside. He takes a seat on the top turnbuckle so that he can watch and he can observe everything that's going on, all the mayhem as they kick the crap out of the champion. The announcers say we're hearing that there's something going on in the back. And we cut to the back, and there's Alex Marvez with a microphone in hand, and he's standing right outside the locker room of the Blackpool Combat Club. And they're trying to get out, and they can't because the doors are chained shut. So it was a very quick cutaway and then right back to the arena. So they just wanted to illustrate why Jon Moxley is not getting any help from his boys is because they were locked in their dressing room. So Austin Gunn brings a chair into the ring. He goes to use it. Moxley kicks him in the gut and is trying to make a comeback, but I mean, the numbers are just too much and they overwhelm him. Here comes MJF. He got the scarf around the neck, rips the scarf off, throws it on the ground. And he's having this crisis of conscience here. Should I or shouldn't I? He doesn't know whether or not he should go down and make the save. He decides against it. He goes to walk back through the tunnel. The crowd boos. But then he has a change of heart. And here comes MJF, and he sprints down to the ring, and he gets up in front of Stokely's face, and he fires him. He fires Stokely Hathaway. And as soon as he fires Stokely, Page gives him a super kick, and now the Firm turns their ire to MJF, and they start to kick the crap out of MJF. And Ethan Page sets him up for the Ego's Edge, and it was actually a great Razor's Edge that he gave him. He folded this fucker up. So he lays out MJF with the Razor's Edge. They throw MJF out of the ring. They clear off the timekeeper's table. Morrissey picks up MJF. He gives him a choke slam through the table. And that's how they went off the air. Jon Moxley has been laid out, the champion. MJF, the challenger, has also been laid out and seemingly betrayed by the Firm after he just fired them. I mean, if I just got fired, I might also want to put my boss through a table so I can understand it. But that's how they went off the air. And it was very interesting because you watch this and it feels like they're going to go through with this babyface turn, or at least, booking him more like a tweener at least. But it could be a full-on babyface turn coming soon for MJF. I don't think that's what's going to end up happening here. It is certainly a road they could go down. And I think they wanted you to see it that way when the show was over. I think the more likely scenario here is that what we saw at the end with the Firm was all just one big setup. And it would not be very hard for MJF to say, look, I want you to make this look as good as possible. I'm paying you for a reason. So lay your shit in. Don't go easy on me. Make it look real. Make it look good. So that at Full Gear, when we find out that Stokely was really with MJF the entire time, we come to find out that it was all one big setup. Otherwise, I mean, look, the relationship between MJF and Stokely Hathaway, MJF and the Firm, has been virtually non-existent. What would even be the point of associating them together if they never really did anything with them? There's been hardly any interaction between the two. Why even link them up unless it's actually building to something? So the more likely scenario is that this is a classic MJF setup, and he's just pulling the wool over everyone's eyes, and he's going to fuck over Jon Moxley at the pay-per-view. But I said at the beginning that I have another theory. And I said, pay very close attention to something MJF said in the promo earlier in the show. He made that comment about, I promise you, I pledge, I will not win with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Right? He said that he made that promise to everybody. He said, I will not win with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Promise you, at Full Gear. And I take him at his word that he will not win with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. But he did not say anything about brass knucks. And who has brass knucks? William Regal. We had that great segment last week with Regal and MJF and the history they gave us between them, going back to WWE and the email that he keeps on his phone, and then Regal with his rebuttal. And you still have a lot to, I forgot the word that he used, like a lot to learn or a lot to prove. So what if we go to Full Gear and MJF is right, he's not going to use the Dynamite Diamond Ring, but he's going to get the assist from William Regal and the Brass Knucks. William Regal turns on Jon Moxley. William Regal turns on the Blackpool Combat Club, and he helps MJF win the AEW World Championship. That is the scenario that intrigues me the most. As much as I like Regal with the Blackpool Combat Club, at the end of the day, the guy is a villain. Right? He's always been a villain. He called himself last week, I'm a decent, ordinary villain. But what if? What if? And I'm not even saying that this was all set up from the get-go. But maybe it's just a situation where, he's out to prove himself, right? He's going to prove himself to Regal. Whatever the explanation for it is, he doesn't win with the ring, he wins with the knucks. And that's the swerve in all this. That's an intriguing idea that I like. I could get behind that. In the end, the outcome is the same. MJF walks away the AEW World Champion. But it could be MJF walking away with William Regal when that pay-per-view is over. And not because he needs Regal with him. He doesn't need Regal, right? I mean, MJF does not need Regal to be a mouthpiece. But I think that would be an interesting twist on the story there. And gaining Regal's respect by going out there and doing what it takes to win. Regal told him in the promo last week, I want you to go out there and do whatever you need to do. Take whatever liberties you need to take. That was Regal's exact words last week. Whatever liberties you need to take. I just say, consider that idea. I thought this was an excellent episode. We have the lineup for Rampage coming up on Friday. Claudio and Yuta are going to be a team again, taking on Matt Menard and Angelo Parker. Ty Mello takes on Madison Rayne. Wardlow defends the TNT title against Matt Taven. Dynamite next week has Darby Allin against Jay Lethal. We're also getting, and this is exactly what they said. This is exactly how they advertised it. The Daddy Ass Birthday Bash. I believe he's going to be turning either 58 or 59 years old. Not bad. I'm a lot younger than Billy Gunn and don't look the way Billy Gunn looks. Billy Gunn looks very good for his age. However, he got that way. He looks very good for his age. All Atlantic Championship on the line. Orange Cassidy defends against Luchasaurus and Rey Fenix. It is the most useless title in this entire company. It truly is. I'm not even considering the FTW title because it's not even an official title. So I'm not even counting that. The most useless title in this company. At least the TBS title. They're using it to really build up Jade Cargill, try to make her a bigger star. And I'm fine with the women's division having a secondary title. The All Atlantic title is completely 100% useless. Renee is going to sit down with Saraya and Britt Baker to, I think, set up a match. I think they're going to set the match up for Full Gear. I still think there's a chance they go the tag team route, but I have no doubt that we're going to see Saraya back in the ring soon. And Chris Jericho will have his open challenge. Whatever former Ring of Honor World Champion wants to show up and challenge him, we'll have that match on TV next week as well. At Solomonster on Twitter is the poll. That is the place to go vote in the poll. And right now it is 69. Oh yeah, 69%. Scissor me, daddy ass. 69% thumbs up for Dynamite, 17% thumbs in the middle, and 13% thumbs down. So go vote at Solomonster. And you can also send in a super chat. I want to know what you guys have to say about Dynamite tonight. Again, I enjoyed the show. I thought it was actually a very, very good episode tonight. A very enjoyable edition of the show. All right, here we go. All right, let's go through your messages here. Okay, you'll see the dollar icon on the sidebar. That is where you can go to submit a super. I had one person the other night didn't know how to submit a super chat. Very simple. You'll see the dollar icon on the side. Click it, put the value in, send in your super chat. We have special donation amounts also, don't forget, in the description down below. If you want a specific one to trigger, you can find them down below. We have... Yes, our old friend is back here with the $2 super chat. Will the JAS BCC feud ever end? It has been 8 to 9 months. Yeah, I think it's barreling towards a finish now that they're teasing dissension of the ranks of the BCC. So I don't think we're going to be going through this much longer. Shinakuma, shout out to everybody who makes this stream possible. So that is not only me, but all of you as well. Alberto Ortiz, would you ever get physical at a hog show? Well, I certainly hope not. I guess we'll find out, but I'm certainly not trying to. Spaghetti, $4.99 super chat. Orange Cassidy needs to defend his belt against Suzuki at Wrestle Kingdom. Trevon Birch, good show, but I feel like the firm is dead in the water without MJF. I would not assume that they are without MJF. Liquid Sharingan, I forgot, who are you again? I need a reminder. Liquid Sharingan has no idea who he's talking to here. I'm the Solomonster, damn it! And now you know. And thank you for the second super chat, brother. I appreciate that. Griga, thank you for the $1.99. Food Hive says, Solomonster, you little creme brulee, you. Oh no, don't start with me. Don't even start with me now, Food Hive. We've had enough chefs get called out in this country. Celebrity chefs have been called out for sexual harassment. Don't make me go to the papers about you. That's going to be the next big scandal. Chef Food Hive is going to have a whole story about him on TMZ if this keeps up. Fire Panda, what's going on? Says, my lord, we have a problem. The vault of ancient texts has been robbed and all of the ancient texts are gone. I have failed you. I don't know what you're talking about. But thank you for the $5. In all seriousness, I do appreciate the support. Rizzo with the $10 super chat. Is it fair to assume with how Punk sought Nick Hausman out that Punk is Hausman's source? Maybe Tony Khan should have a no pets policy. I think Tony Khan should have a no pets policy. We've had Pharaoh, who now has PTSD for the rest of his life. We have Larry, who allegedly had his teeth knocked out. I mean, what's next? Huh? Who's gonna bring their fucking cat? Felix the cat. Felix the cat is gonna come to the show and fucking Wardlow's gonna sit on her by accident. I mean, what's next? What's next? Remember when Christopher sat on little Cosette on The Sopranos? You sat on little Cosette, I ought to fucking strangle you. Remember that? Tony Soprano would not be very happy to hear about these pets being smacked around here on these shows. Dick the Cock Johnson with the $9.99. So MJF is 100% doing the Bully Ray Aces and Eights thing, where he is still actually allied with the firm and they only did the beatdown to sell the ruse. I believe you are correct. Samoan fans are petitioning for Halloween Ends to be remade. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, Michael in the chat. Oh, Maron. Yes, the intervention scene, by the way, is the greatest scene in the history of that show. Carlos Colon Jr., FTR pinned tonight, confirms the Bucks are back. All right. Rizzo with the $20 super chat. Rizzo, you are the man. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Rizzo. Boom, 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 boom. Look at that. Look at that. We're all about the effects here. It's not really a full bomb, but the biggest super chat tonight. So there you go. Rizzo says, does AEW not have an HR department to talk to Regal? Also, in regards to Punk possibly coming to WWE, I guess it depends on who Triple H wants more, the Elite or Punk. I'm not a fan of either of any of them, but I am not Triple H. EJ Slamp, I have my first date in a few years this weekend. I'm nervous and excited, so wish me luck. EJ, just turn on the charm, brother. You put on some of that Dolce & Gabbana. You pop the collar and you'll be good. You'll be good to go, man. Just think to yourself when you're out there, when you're on that date. All you got to do is think to yourself, what would Solomonster do? That's it. That's all the confidence you need. You want a confidence boost, you just think, what would Solomonster do? And you're going to have yourself a good night. Joseph Brooks with the $9.99. Although they suck, are ICP kind of underrated if you think about it in wrestling? They got to be on ECW, WWE, WCW, Ring of Honor, TNA, and they have their own company. Absolutely, they've made their mark in the wrestling business for sure. I wouldn't be racing to put them in the Hall of Fame or anything like that, but yeah, they're big wrestling fans. They've been involved in multiple promotions. You know, they have that gathering every year, which apparently I think it's in the middle of nowhere. But I've never been to the gathering. Can you imagine Solomonster at the gathering? In the middle of fucking Idaho somewhere with a fucking map in my hand trying to figure out where I am. And then I see the clowns running towards me. I'd fucking shit myself. But no, ICP, they've been around for a long time. And they've definitely made their mark on the business, that's for sure. Rizzo, again, with the $10 super chat. Thunder Rosa tweeted, I thank y'all for the support. I know where I stand. Do you think it is something or nothing? Also, I too am getting tired of these cryptic tweets from wrestlers. Yeah, I am just... You know, it makes for good fodder on the podcast and sad tweet segments. Hey, look, they want to keep giving me content by all means. Give me content, feed me more, but I also am very sick of these cryptic tweets. Either say what you want to say or don't say anything at all. Because then people misconstrue it and then they'll yell at the fans and they'll yell at the dirt sheets when they report on it. Oh, you know, they're just running with false information. Well, then don't be fucking cryptic. Come out with whatever it is that you want to say. You got something to get off your chest, go ahead and say it. I'm not saying it necessarily applies to Rosa. I haven't seen what she tweeted, but could it be something? Yes. Yes. She's not tweeting that for no reason. There is no love lost with her and Britt Baker. And that is not an angle for TV. They do not like each other. Well, you know, hey, we may not have to worry anymore anyway, because if the rumors are to be believed, Twitter may have a new owner by the end of this week. As early as Friday, Twitter may be owned officially by Elon Musk. And there are apparently millions of people who have sworn that they are going to delete their Twitter accounts. So Twitter may cease to exist by the end of this week if all of these people follow through on their threats. Dick the Cock Johnson. The second greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he is the good guy. Keep that in mind for those of you who don't think it's possible that the firm beatdown at the end of the show is the way they're going with this. He said it himself, right? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was that he didn't exist. All this talk about the devil. If you don't think it's possible that he wouldn't, in storyline, that he wouldn't have staged that just to throw people off, then you haven't really been paying attention. It's exactly the sort of thing that MJF would do. Pillow v. Yeah. You know, Mr. Ozone, I think you might be right. Look, I love my 33,000 followers on Twitter. I value, there's a lot of really creepy cretins on Twitter too. But I love my 33,000 followers, but you know what? If Elon Musk bought Twitter and then the very next day shut the whole fucking thing down, I actually think for the wrestling business, it'd probably be the greatest thing that ever happened. It probably would be the greatest thing to ever happen to the wrestling business. Pillow v. Pillow, how would you feel about Painmaker Chris Jericho against Jay Briscoe at Final Battle? I think it would be a great match. Jay Briscoe is a former Ring of Honor World Champion, so I think it would be a great match, but it's tough because they don't, not that they don't want to, but they cannot mention the Briscoes on AEW television. It's very clear that that is a legitimate edict that came down from somebody in the hierarchy at Warner Discovery. And so how then are you going to have Chris Jericho, who's all over television every single week, promoting a match against somebody who they can't even mention? That's why I don't think it works. It's not going to work. If they're not able to mention Jay Briscoe, let alone have him on TV, they can't do the match. So I would love to see it. I think it'd be a fun match, but they're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. And it's not because Tony Khan wouldn't want to. I think it's because he's just not allowed to. Which is ridiculous, by the way. Completely ridiculous. You want to see a good Briscoes match? We got a good Briscoes match Saturday night at House of Glory. Briscoes defending the HOG tag team titles against Aussie Open. You want to see the Briscoes? Fight TV Saturday night. That's the place to go. Z-Bird 85 with the $5 super chat. I loved the old school feel of the MJF interview. I would like to see more interviews and less weird stand-up routines in the ring known as promos. I agree. EJ Slemp, I know he was a little before our time, but do you have a favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie? He is my favorite horror director of all time. Psycho. Nick Grosso, $4.99. What are your thoughts on Britt Baker taking shots at Thunder Rosa on Swerve's podcast? I don't think that it serves anyone well in that company. They are not feuding at this time. I don't really see what purpose it serves because I don't see it being part of a storyline. And so if it's not part of a storyline and you're not going to make money off of it, then I don't see what purpose it serves other than to just stir up more shit in the company at a time when they need less of that. I mean, look, there are times where it can actually be very financially beneficial to kind of do work an angle, or if you have two people that don't like each other but they're working together, have them go out there and make comments about each other. if in the end you're going to get them back in the ring and get them on TV and make money off of it. Otherwise, what purpose does it serve? It doesn't serve any purpose for Tony Khan, so I don't see what the benefit in that is. Food Hive. People always forgot that MJF was a babyface when AEW Dynamite started. He turned on Cody and was immediately the most hated man in the business. No, you have it wrong. He was never a babyface. See, that's your mistake. You thought he was a babyface. When he turned on Cody, he proved that he was not a babyface. He convinced you that he was, but he wasn't. Groovy Goose with the $4.99. If Regal does not cool it with his comments to Excalibur, AEW will have to change their rating. Thanks for the fun streams, my friend. You're very welcome. Well, they're already TV 14, so, I mean, what do you do? TVMA? Well, do they even have a television rating above TVMA? Movies, I know it would be NC-17. I think TVMA would be the highest they could go. Food Hive says, Solomonster bringing his Be the Booker booking skills here with that Regal turn. You know it's good. You know it's good. Queen Fire Panda, hello Solomonster, I'm back watching the streams. Just one question, who is this ancient scholar using my name and what the fuck are the ancient texts? I don't know, you tell me, you wrote them, so. I don't know, it looks like Fire Panda was off her meds for a few days, but hopefully now we got you back, right? You're back on your regimen, I hope? Good, it's good to have you back. Tripod, don't let Jericho near dogs. Remember Lucy. Oh, I remember Lucy very well. And it's kind of funny that the woman in the room during the scrum was named Lucy. Because Ace Steel's wife was named Lucy. That's very strange. But yes, I remember Lucy the dog heading into WrestleMania 18. Poor Lucy got backed over with a limousine, I believe, right? Got backed over by the limo. Frank Aquilino, $4.99 super chat. Great show tonight. Great main event. We need more Penta. What would you name an AEW themed Halloween show since Halloween Havoc is taken? You could do Halloween Horror. It's close enough to Halloween Havoc, but I don't really see there being any issue WWE could have with Halloween Horror. Mike Hoochie. You almost got it. You almost got it, Mike. But I caught it. I caught it before you got me. Thank you for the $1.99. Drew McIncock, buy, sell, rent. On McIncock, Luger, and McIntyre. I said he's Drew Luger now. So we go with Luger. Liquid Sharingan, if Twitter died tomorrow, the world would be better instantly. All social media degrades social interactions. That is why I don't have it. Well said. Del Fuego, had to put down our dog on Friday. He was my first ever pet. Miss him like crazy. Miss walking him during women's matches. Was the go-to let's go out time. I'm very sorry to hear that. It sucks losing a pet. I've been through that before myself. And all I can say, it helped me. And again, everybody is different. But I look at pictures and, remember the good times. And it puts a smile on my face. They are our greatest companions. And it seems unfair that we only get a very limited amount of time with them. So it's hard. It's hard to do that. So I'm very sorry to hear that. Hulkling93. What would Solomonster do? Have a girl believe that Hulk Hogan was dead? One of my favorite Solomonster stories. Yeah, I did tell that story a long time ago on the sound. I don't even remember what episode that was. Oh my god. It was a long time ago. Lorray, any thoughts on Bray Wyatt against Roman Reigns for the title? I really feel like he's the only one that can take the belt. Well, Bray apparently is internally, he is slotted as the #1 babyface on SmackDown. Make of that what you will. If you have the #1 babyface on SmackDown, and Roman Reigns is the number one heel, it would seem that at some point they'll be on a collision course. I just don't see that being the WrestleMania match. You know, even if you take Rock out of the picture, I don't see it right now, but a lot of it depends on where the Bray story is going. Bray just came back. There's a lot of questions right now. I'm filled with questions at the end of every show. I don't quite know where they're going with his story. But if he is the number one babyface on SmackDown, then he and Roman are going to have to meet at some point. Maybe it's, not for the title at that point. Maybe Roman already has lost the championships by then. I don't know. But is he the one to take the title from Roman? I don't think so. I still feel like that should be Cody. SNK Fan 01, how would you feel later if Billy Gunn reunites with his sons and challenges for the Trios titles? And should Billy hang the boots after this run? I think Billy should hang the boots when Billy feels like he just can't go anymore. Right now, Billy is in the middle of the greatest run that he's ever had since the New Age Outlaws. I mean, think about it. I mean, nothing he ever did in TNA was nearly as big as this daddy ass stuff with the Acclaim. I don't know how their merch numbers are. I'm sure they're doing very well as far as merch, but the reactions they get every week, this is his best run since the Outlaws. I'm not thinking that he's anywhere close to retirement just yet. As far as him and his sons going for the Trios titles, honestly, personally, I don't really care. I have no interest in seeing it. If they do it, great. If not, that doesn't really faze me. Rizzo. Man, Rizzo is bringing the support tonight, man. Rizzo is the man. I think for life in general, if you shut down Twitter, it would be the best for all of our mental health. I'm watching Halloween 2 and yelling at the cop not to go in the closet right now. Are you watching Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie version, or Halloween 2 from 1981? Super Hot Vector Man. Play Splatterhouse or Castlevania someday on here. Oh man, Splatterhouse was my that was my shit back in the day. Splatterhouse, I think there was a Splatterhouse 2. Yeah, I used to play Splatterhouse. Joseph Manna. Hey Solomonster, any chance we could get a Willow impression? Best wrestling podcaster around. Willow! Jeff Hardy would probably already be playing Willow by now, had he not gotten himself in trouble, so he kind of fucked himself out of that. So, this might be the only Willow impression that you get, because we're not going to see him on TV. Dr. Dakota, Halloween Ends, getting that Jason X heat. Hey, at least Jason X had the greatest kill in the entire series. So that movie was not a complete waste. Super Hot Vector Man, do you think they will do Joe and Jericho soon? I think we will get Joe and Jericho at some point. Joseph Manna, pour one out for Lucy the Bulldog. Thank you for the $10, Joseph. Fire Panda, I wrote them. I don't remember that at all. Anyway, here's a question. Most absurd feud, Cornette and Russo or Hogan and Telling the Truth? Nothing is more absurd than Cornette and Russo. I mean, it doesn't get much more absurd than that. Tuxedo T Servo, mark your calendar, no blood from Moxley tonight. I don't think he bled in the match with Danielson at Grand Slam. And Rizzo, again, Halloween 2 of 1981. They only have up until Halloween H2O on AMC On Demand. Halloween 2 was good. Halloween 2 was good. Not as good as the original. And they forced Carpenter to add the little twist in there about Michael and Laurie being brother and sister, which he never intended that to be part of the story in the first movie. But that's what they wanted, and so that's what he did. Food Hive with the $2. Recently played Zombies Ate My Neighbors on 64. Never played that, but you know what I actually have memories of playing quite a bit of? This had to be NES back in the day. The Simpsons. And I can't remember the name. It was Krusty's something. And I have these vague memories of, it's funny how the mind works. Like, something will trigger a memory and then it all kind of comes back. And I'm like, oh, that, now I'm remembering, that game used to be one I would play nonstop. But I just don't remember the subtitle. I don't remember which Simpsons game it was. I thought it was Krusty's Revenge or Krusty's, I don't know, something like that. Rizzo again with the $5. I agree the Cornette-Russo feud is dumb, but after seeing Corny get emotional about Droz's injury, you can see why he would despise Russo. Wrestling is his life. Oh, believe me, he despises Russo for far more than the Droz injury. You could probably throw Owen's incident in there as well, but the biggest death or the biggest tragedy that he mourns and blames Russo for isn't any of that. It's the death of his beloved wrestling industry. I know he holds Russo responsible for that as well. Krusty's Funhouse, that's what it was. Thank you. I knew you guys would always back me up on this. Krusty's Funhouse. Had a lot of fun playing that. Bryant Finley. $10 super chat. At this point, I think Tony Khan should just strip Rosa of the title and make Storm the full champion. There's no timetable for her return, and her backstage troubles with Storm, Hayter, and Baker do not help. Look, I'm not a huge fan of the interim title stuff myself, so I would have been perfectly content to just strip Rosa and make Tony Storm the champion. At this point, though, it's been a month and a half. Rosa, I think, was talking January when she was on Busted Open, I believe. She mentioned that the other day. At this point, just continue the interim stuff. Wait for Rosa to come back. Hope that she's back in the next couple of months. But then, just put this interim stuff on the back burner for a while. He's talked about why he likes doing it. And I know he kind of borrows from the UFC when it comes to that, and it creates an issue when the person comes back. But this is back-to-back times now. After a while, it's not necessary. You can just crown a champion, and when that person comes back, you can have them challenge to get back the title that they never technically lost in the first place. Rizzo, I started writing a script for Solomonster Sounds Off the Movie about you recording the podcast and rushing to a hog show with Ryan Reynolds as the Solomonster. Damn it. Ryan Reynolds? You think Ryan Reynolds can play me? Is that the best we can come up with? I don't know. Who would play me in a movie? I guess you could do worse than Ryan Reynolds, I suppose. It's not the first name I would have come up with. Tripod. That was Tripod. Did I say Tripod? I said Rizzo. I've seen Rizzo's name all over the place. No, Rizzo sent a different one in. That was Tripod. Tripod, thank you. Tripod is writing the script. Rizzo says, last one, should all of us in the chat and you organize a search party for the good Professor Gotti? Yeah, I don't know what happened to Gotti. Gotti is he might be sleeping with the fishes. I don't know what happened to him, but I hope wherever he is, I hope he is still watching, and I hope he is still listening, and I hope he's doing well. The Rock as Solomonster. You want the Rock to play me? Well, The Rock's movies, they all make like $1 gazillion, so sure, why not? As long as I get residuals for it. I think that's a great idea. I would love for The Rock to play me in a movie. Food Hive says Rick Moranis would play you. Oh, fuck you. Fuck you, Rick Moranis. Natty's biggest fan. Thoughts on Ava Rain's debut? I am excited. I will talk about that on the podcast on Sunday. That will be episode 780. And I say that because I have not yet done watching NXT. So I would like to finish watching the show before I start commenting on it. By the way, I mentioned this on Facebook. I'm usually able to find a link by now to the latest episode of Tales from the Territories. I don't have Vice. On YouTube TV, we don't have Vice. So have not been able to find a link to the latest episode from Tuesday, which I think was covering Championship Wrestling from Florida. So, just saying, if anybody has a link, hit me up, because I'd like to be able to watch that and get that reviewed for the podcast on Sunday, but I can't seem to find a link to it. Bryan, yes, I did get your link. It's just I'm so backlogged on emails, but I did get the sleaze link. Yes, thank you for that. Hyru says Ryan Reynolds' slander will not be tolerated. He has given us 2 Deadpool movies with another one on the way. I'm not slandering anybody. I'm just saying I never really imagined him playing me in a movie. Jerry Seinfeld as Solomonster. Jay Baker actually says Jason Bateman as an older Solomonster when Solomonster retires. See, that I could see that. That I could see. Tripod says Joe Pesci as Solomonster. Joe Pesci is like 80 years old. What are you doing to me here? Rizzo says, if I make a movie about my life, I would play myself. You would play with yourself. He would play himself and cast Mandy Rose to play my ex-wife. I will see you all on Friday. Rizzo, you are the king of the super chats tonight, brother. Thank you for the love. I will see you on the SmackDown stream on Friday. Food Hive says the movie Nope is out. You can watch it at home. Are we getting a review on the channel? You mentioned that you would. I don't know that I saw it already. I actually did see it. Not in the theater, but I saw it about a month ago through other means. I saw the movie and I was not overly impressed by what I saw. So I'm not planning on a review. I was actually disappointed. I was disappointed when it was over. All right, so you guys have smashed the like goal. I want to thank you for that. The goal was 500. We have exceeded that. And so I don't want to keep you waiting in suspense for any longer. So before we get to the rest of the messages that come in, let's be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
Always a good time when we can be the booker here on these streams. Yeah, Nope. I guess I was expecting something else. I really like, the Jordan Peele movies I've seen before this. I guess I just was expecting something creepier, scarier. I don't know. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't that good. It was mid. All right, let's go. Let's be the booker here. We begin with Shane McMahon. That is the look of a man who should not have had that burrito from Taco Bell. Look at Shane. My God. He's holding that stomach. He's sweating bullets. I mean, he's sweating bullets all the time. When is he not? He wakes up in the morning. He wakes up in a pool of sweat in the morning. He was getting me very concerned the last time we saw him on TV. Before the Royal Rumble. Last time we saw him in a segment on TV. Looked like he was going to croak. I was concerned for the guy. But yeah, he should not have had that burrito from Taco Bell. Shane O'Mac. That's the older version of Shane O'Mac. Gonna go one-on-one with Mae Young's hand. Shane McMahon and Mae Young's hand. Or the hand that she gave birth to. Actually, now that I look at this guy, I'm looking at the guy in the hand costume. I think this guy could play me. Right? What do you guys think? Forget Ryan Reynolds. This is the guy. I think Mae Young's hand can play me in the movie. I see the resemblance. There you go. We got to find out who this guy is. Let's go to the ladies. We begin here with Velvet Sky. Velvet Sky.
In my eye.
Justin Hess with the 1992 Ric Flair Super Chat. I love it. Velvet Sky gonna go one-on-one with Cameron. Her favorite match was with Melina and Alicia Fox. Never forget that Ariane's favorite match of all time was with Melina and Alicia Fox. And do you know why her favorite match of all time was Melina against Alicia Fox? Because it is the only match that she knows. And Steve Austin's reaction to that will forever be priceless. Oh, I miss Tough Enough. All right, tag teams, this is how we wrap it up. We wrap it up with a tag team match. And it is MSK. Wesley Nash Carter. Wesley, the new NXT North American champion. This is back when he was the NXT Tag Team Champion, or one half of the Tag Team Champions. MSK, we're starting out good. That's a good start. MSK going to be taking on the Headbangers. I booked these matches to book a card that people would actually want to see. And so, to that extent, I have failed. 0 for 3. 0 for 3 tonight. Not one of the best nights for Be the Booker. You win some, you lose some, you move on. We will try again on Friday if we hit the goal. EJ Slemp said there is only one person who can play you, Leo. Well, let me guess who will be directing. Since apparently they're incapable of working with anyone else but each other. It'll be Leo, it'll be Marty, and it'll be me. I think we can make that work. Del Fuego, best date that you have been on and ever taken a date to wrestling. No, I've never taken a date to wrestling. And as far as that, I'm going to leave that one alone right now. Brian Finley, do you think Psycho Sid crapping himself against The Undertaker and the story about Brett, Duggan, and Neidhart watching Brawler go... First of all, the Sid story has never been confirmed. All the interviews Undertaker did when he was doing interview after interview after interview, when he was promoting his documentary, now he's doing his one-man shows. I don't know if anybody's ever asked him about the WrestleMania 13 match. Or if they asked him if he would even give a straight answer. I don't know. So that's always been an urban legend. The other story, I have no idea. Justin says, thank you for always being there for us. That was the 1992 Super Chat. Justin, thank you. I appreciate that. I try. Food Hive says either Pete Davidson or Bobby Flay as Solomonster. And then he says Jesse Heisenberg. Oh, Jesse Eisenberg. Heisenberg. No. Jesse Eisenberg as Solomonster. A lot of suggestions here about who should play me in a movie that will never be made. Who's making this movie? Who's coming up with the budget for this movie? But at least I have a list of people now that I can reach out to if this Phantom movie ever gets made. Vote in the poll at Solomonster. Follow me on there as well before Elon Musk shuts the whole damn thing down. Hey, Justin coming in hot again with another 1992 with a tear in my eye. Ric Flair one more time. He says, thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. Right back at you. It means a lot. Thank you. And Tripod with the $2 says, I know who's not playing Solomonster. Bill Goldberg. I don't think he'd want to play me. All right, well, listen, this has been fun as always. I thank you for choosing me for your AEW Dynamite coverage. And we're going to do it all over again Friday night. SmackDown, we'll see what the latest chapter is in the story of Bray Wyatt. I am very interested. It's become really the segment I look forward to on these shows because as we head into Survivor Series, looking for little hints about who, Bray might be involved with going forward. Now we know he's going to be a babyface, apparently. So we'll see what the next chapter is in this Uncle Howdy story. And we'll go live then on Friday after SmackDown. And then we have one last stream after that. It is the final day of the month. It is the Halloween stream on Monday night. I want to end the month on a high note. So bring yourself on back. Bring your super chats. Bring your itchy fingers to hit that like button. And we'll close out the month of October. Can you believe it's almost November already? They said on the news yesterday that we had our final 6 p.m. sunset. From now on, it's going to just be earlier and earlier and earlier, which makes the days more depressing because it gets darker and darker and darker earlier. But it is that time of year. So anyway, be well, stay safe. Oh, we have some more super chats. Look at this. Tripod says, I know who's not. Oh, no, we did that one. Food Hive says, Solo, directed by R.L. Stein. I used to read the Goosebumps book, the Goosebumps books when I was in school. I used to love buying them and collecting them. Because, you want to know the sick reason why I used to love the Goosebumps books? Because I would feel the cover where it had the goosebumps, the raised bumps on the cover. I was very weird like that. I would buy the books. Half of them I didn't even read. I was just like feeling the cover. I was always the kid, like, if you gave me the, oh my God, what do you call them? The things that you step on, the bubble wrap stuff, right? Just, make noise, pop them. Like, it didn't take much to amuse me. R.L. Stein, man, I haven't heard that name mentioned in a very long time. Pearwolf says, I just downloaded all the Goosebumps covers in HD. What's the point in downloading them, man? You got to be able to touch them. You got to be able to feel them. You can't feel them through the screen. I have a braille fetish. Terrible. Skywalker, thank you for the $1.99. Yes, we are gonna get out of here now. You guys are too much. I'll see you on Friday night for SmackDown, guys. Have a good one. Take care.